Okay.
What have we got here, Phyllis?
Hopefully a life-saving apparatus.
Okay.
This is just kind of Christmas today, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And you even got a shower and some 2x4s outside.
Come join us out here.
Okay. When it came to heating the place, we had three choices. We could use the LP fireplace thing right there, which I gotta say is not efficient, unreliable, probably needs some maintenance on it. I don't know. Anyway, it's not gonna work for us. And LP in Alaska is up to $6 a gallon if you gotta have it delivered. That gets pricey. Choice number two, firewood. I priced a Blaze King, kind of like a princess, kind of like Phyllis, which is the smallest one that they've got to heat this house. And between the stove and the pipe, it was going to be $5,000. Well, you still got to cut firewood and split firewood and do all that stuff. And dry firewood and have a place to store it, and then haul it in and start fires all the time. The third choice, which is super popular up here, is the Toyo stove. It is pretty much a gravity feed fuel oil burner, but with a high-end twist. Okay, now this little guy here is rated at heating 600 square feet, which is definitely more than we have. Really impressive. $1,400 for the stove. The prices of tanks and everything has gone up and gone stupid, just like everything across the country. The tank and the stand is going to be $1,000, but for 300 gallons of diesel, this should heat our house for the year as warm as we want it. And at the lower power setting, it draws 28 volts. Or 28 watts, I'm sorry, 28 watts. So 28 watts, I mean, these two light bulbs running are drawing more than that. So it should be able to run off our solar system without any issue whatsoever. And we're not doing the full install today. Maybe I shouldn't say that, because we'll tie them all together. But it's really not terribly difficult for the $1,400. It also comes with, and we are going to register this one. We are, because there's a warranty and there's some high-end details to this. I believe they're actually made in Japan. And the government doesn't like them because they're super efficient, and they don't like people using fuel oil because they're dumb. So they don't want to put an Energy Star rating on them. You'll find that out. So, yeah, we are going to, unlike everything else I do, we're actually going to register this product and really take care of it. There's several places that take care of them. They seem to run solidly without an issue for about 10 years, and then you got some maintenance that you got to do to them. So,
Too bad Lester's not here.
oh, we could put
That would be a,
cat in a box.
yeah, fat cat box.
That box is just about big enough for Lester Pete.
I know.
So unfortunately, I'm not gonna power it up today because I don't have any oil.
It's a little bit deeper than I thought it was going to be.
It is, yeah.
What do you have going on?
It comes with your intake and your exhaust pipe. Here's your 110 volt to plug it in. It has a little fan right here that blows over stuff. This is for your thermostat, your temperature setting. So, you know, depending on where you put that elevation wise on the wall will determine if you're getting a good reading or not, and you can move that around to kind of adjust it. I'm not really going to do much with this because one is intake, one is exhaust, but yeah, you can see on the front, it's just, they're super simple. And this little guy will replace that big stove over there, and for about $750 for a year, it'll keep it as warm as we want it to be in here. Super simple, comes with all the exhaust pipe. Where the wood stove that I wanted to put in, the wood stove was $3,600, the stovepipe was an additional $1,600. And then you gotta install it. And I refuse to poke a hole through my ceiling because that's guaranteed to leak. This just goes right out the wall, real simple. So it's gonna be nice, and it comes with everything to install it.
Good.
Nice as could be. So I'm hoping to have this installed this weekend and have that inefficient piece of junk removed from the cabin this weekend.
And where is it going?
That's going over to Stoney's. That's going over to the dry cabin.
Yes.
So for the amount of time anyone's actually out there, that's ideal for out there. That is perfect. I mean, you got to hook yourself up a 20-pound cylinder and you've got instant heat. And it heats like a bugger. I mean, it'll run, if you don't have 110 volt, it'll run anyway because it's a pilot light and then, you know, the fancy flames. But if you do have 110 volt like a generator, then it's also got a blower. So that thing heats this cabin until you can't stand it in about 10 minutes. It does a good job. But again, I'm going to the $6 a gallon to run it, and we have gas lights in here, we have a gas stove, and we're going to also have an LP powered refrigerator eventually. And you know, a 100-pound LP cylinder should run the lights, the stove, and the fridge for 6 to 8 months. If we got to run that too, once a month, we're going to refill it, and that's, you know, that's $200 a month. It really gets expensive really fast. This little guy will run super efficient. And once you've got your fuel oil tank on the stand, the bottom of the tank has to be a minimum 18 inches taller than the base of the stove because it is gravity feed. It does have a dosing pump in it, but for the most part, it's gravity feed. So should be real simple. We'll get her hooked up this weekend. With it against the wall, there's an arrow somewhere that should say up. Right there. It needs to go right there. But I also have to put screws in it. Which I don't know how the it's possible. This flips up. I know you're kind of wondering, am I getting stuff in the tank? Possible. But there is a filter system that everything that comes out of the tank goes through a 10 micron filter before it actually gets to the house. So that is absolutely critical. Now, we're not using your standard Teflon tape. I don't like using it that much anyway in hydraulics or fuel situations, because there's always a chance a piece of that tape is going to come off and plug an orifice somewhere. So I use TFE paste. I should have mixed it up first. I always use the paste. Yeah, TFE paste. Try to mix it up. It does get a little bit of separated junk on there, which I don't really want. So I just make sure I get it on the first couple of threads.
Don't get it on your clothes, the lady said.
Oh yeah, that's pretty permanent if you do.
Like you're about ready to.
And then whenever you're screwing it together and you're using the paste, you screw it in a turn or two, and then you back it off, and then you screw it in again. It gets a really good mix of that paste on your threads and really embedded in your threads. And you want to put this on tight. It's a cast aluminum fitting, but you can get it on there tight because there's no point in putting a lock on it if they can just unscrew the lid and steal the fuel. Because the Toyos use either kerosene or a ultra low sulfur diesel. Kerosene's about $7 a gallon. Kerosene is jet fuel. We won't be using that. We'll be using, in Alaska, they have a lot of fuel oil. They had fuel oil in Wisconsin, but we never used it because it was super expensive. Thing is, with fuel oil though, you get way more BTUs per gallon than you'll ever get out of LP or natural gas. So it's actually a really good thing to use if you have access to it. Your average 18-year-old won't be unscrewing that. So now, in order to fill it and not have oil just blasting right back out of the hole, you have to have a vent. So we are going to put our vent in as well. Okay, there we go. Top side's done other than a lock. I don't want any leaks, so we're going to
Make it man tight?
Well, I'm not going to go full farmer tight, but it will be
More than girl tight.
more than girl tight. Definitely more than girl tight, always. Okay, that's not going to leak. That's your ball valve. You gotta Whenever I plumb anything, whether it be fuel, hydraulics, water, you name it, I put multiple shutoffs in that system. That way you can isolate a problem and you can be fixed up in no time. But if you can't isolate it, I don't know. What's your plan? You got 300 gallons here. That's really going to be a problem if you can't isolate it. Now, the Toyo, the older Toyos used to come with a safety shutoff where it had lead in the it had lead in a valve that would hold a spring back, and if it got to a certain temperature, then the lead would melt and it would automatically collapse and shut the fuel off from coming in your house. But my guess is that by the time you get to the temp to melt lead inside your house, it's already too late. But I'm still putting in a shutoff. Just, you know, like there's gonna be a filter on here. So if you want to service the filter, what I did with the cap. If you want to service the filter, you still got to be able to. And it's important to note on these. There's an in and an out. Okay, most of these valves, they're this is your filter head. But there's always an in and an out. The same thing with your valves. They always have a direction that they are supposed to flow. And watch these close fittings. Lots of little metal burrs, guaranteed to ruin the rest of your day. Come on. Come on. Okay. Now what we're doing, like I said, this is our filter head. Now we're going down from a 1-inch NPT, which is your pipe thread, down to a flare fitting for, you'd use it for either LP, but you're using it in this case for fuel oil, which is fine. There's not a great deal of pressure behind it. But again, I'm doping everything up here through TFE. You just got to remember, this is aluminum, so don't crank on it like it's, look at that, like it's okay, there's that.
Was it supposed to be at an angle like that?
No. Oh, downward?
Yeah.
Well, that's how
Or
this
does
is.
it not matter?
That's how this is welded in here.
Oh.
The tank itself is level.
Yeah.
So it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, we're putting just a little bit of dielectric grease on here, on the O-rings and such. Just makes things come apart that much easier when you got to take them apart. I always plan for what if. Now, don't cross thread it. Watch me cross thread it. It doesn't have to be crazy tight, kind of like your oil filter thing. Once it makes contact, give it another half turn. And then again, I'm going to put a little dielectric grease on this O-ring as well. Dielectric grease won't react with the fuel and stuff, and it won't cause the plastic in the O-ring to break down. Usually it's used in electronics to get a better connection. And weirdly enough, it's starting to rain, so let's get this on quick. Good enough. That should be good. Okay, we're gonna go inside because it's starting to rain, and
What's happening?
oh, we're trying to do the final hookups to this Toyo stove here. The instructions leave a little bit to be desired, I will tell you. If you have options of different ways you could do it, you need to list what the options are for. Okay, so we're gonna make our pipe connection here, our soft copper. I haven't done this for a while. I don't remember how much it's supposed to stick up. Really don't know. It doesn't say. What size is it? Must be 3/8. Okay, this is very similar to doing brake lines, except brake lines are a double flare, and on soft copper it's only a single flare. And I hope I'm doing this right. So you put it in the corresponding hole, but you got a couple things you gotta look for here. I'm not sure if I did this right. Okay, this is kind of cheesy, but when you put it in there, first thing to remember is always put your nut on first. Turns out it's not going to go on after the flare. Second of all, you got different sizes listed on here. You got 5/8 is a big one, 3/16 quarter, whatever. We're using 3/8. You want to make sure that the one to the outside has the chamfer on here. That gives you your flare, okay? Your inside flare. Typically when you do brake lines, you use the double flare part to make sure you got enough sticking up. So I'm kind of guessing here. I'm not sure what it's got to be. Should be right about there. So tighten it down. It flares pretty easy because it's copper. Okay, lock your piece on, and then flare it. And if it isn't right, cut it off and redo it, or you're going to have a leak if it's not centered, and I have a feeling. That looks really weird. Like it's not centered. I'm going to redo it. I don't trust it. I mean, it's copper, so it's super soft and it'll move, but I just don't like it. So Why is this? Well, maybe it's okay. Okay, that's a good flare. So then your flare nut comes on, and when you tighten it up, this was a bad one here. When you tighten it up, you can't see it. See how this one was off? It had kind of a weird flat spot on it. I mean, I know it'll probably seal, but if it doesn't, it means we have a leak inside the house of diesel fuel. And that's not what we want here at all. Okay, so we got the Toyo all installed. I should turn on the light here. Okay.
So, with some cussing and
Yeah, there was small pieces of great frustration, but it's all hooked up. You haven't smelled diesel in here?
No.
So the leak is fixed. I had a minor leak. It wouldn't be me if I didn't. And I fixed it up last night. So we don't, right now until we're on the solar, where it can just run all the time, we have to run it with generator. So I'm not going to bother to set the time and date and all that. So we'll just turn it on. Yeah, it says it's in burning mode. It's set at 56.
Ooh.
So when it initially starts,
Jeez.
okay, maybe that's a little warm.
Yeah.
82 is where I had it yesterday. Okay, so now what it's doing, it goes into a startup phase where it's got a couple of igniters that get really super hot and get it to start burning. It's running on fuel oil, kerosene. Just the most incredibly efficient stove ever. I think it's 0.014 gallons per hour on the low setting. So it'll start off on the high setting. This burn mode will actually go to three blocks on there. And then after a little bit, it'll come down to 1 and it just sits there and idles. And it's toasty warm. It's got a circulation fan in it. It's so simple. Yeah, amazing. We wondered what this panel was the whole time that we've been here. We thought, wow, they were good enough to leave us a patch panel in case, you know, we ever remove this. Nope. They screwed up and they put it about 16 inches too low, and this was their fix for it. I don't have another piece of this to cover up for that. So shoot. Oh, I think I gotta take it off anyway.
Wow, that's not even a nice round hole.
Can you take that, please? No, not at all. And they also didn't have any sealant behind it. So we're gonna have to probably buy a sheet. And when I make those insulation panels for those windows in the house, we will save a scrap and we'll have to cover the whole thing. I'll have to come up with something though. I don't know how this comes out. I don't know. This is a combination intake exhaust pipe, and I assume that they go together, but I can't seem to get it up.